What's the biggest area of concern for the Oklahoma Sooners going into 2025? Well, it might not be exactly what ESPN thinks.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at Monarch Money for 50% off your first year. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Jay is of Unfair Sports. Go check him out at Unfair Sports on YouTube. I'm of USA Today Sports and Sooners Wire. So go check out my work over there. We're going to start with this, Jay. ESPN created a list of the biggest area of concern for each of their top 25 teams and phrased it this way: what could trip up each top 25 team in the 2025 season? And chose the tight end position for the Oklahoma Sooners and said, and I quote, "Granted, there was plenty of blame to go around for Oklahoma's struggles on offense last season, but finding more consistency at tight end in both the receiving and blocking categories would be a big boost for an offense that has tons of new faces. There isn't a definitive starter at tight end entering preseason camp. Transfers Will Huggins, Carson Kent, and are expected to battle with converted linebacker Jaron Kanak for the job from ESPN's Chris Lowe. Also throw in there John Locke. You can throw in there Trine Washington, Caden Helms, Caden McIntyre. It's a tight end. It's a position that's wide open. We have no answer to it. But Jay, what do you think about that? Do you think that the tight end, first of all, is the biggest area of concern for the Oklahoma Sooners?
Oh, 100% agree. That's the spot that we don't have any type of clarity whatsoever for. Now, every other position, there's a very much idea or even a foundational setup of who's going to be doing stuff. So the tight end position for the Oklahoma Sooners is probably the one position where we're trying to figure out who's going to be the one to step up. And I'm going to be honest, John, if that's really our only area of concern, which I agree with it, that's a darn good thing. Because of the uncertainty, that position can be important, especially in the SEC. It's the one conference where I know that and the Big Ten are the two conferences I know tight end can make and break stuff on a regular basis because of how physical the conferences are, how often it gets down to who's pushing who 1 inch further or 2 inches further or 1 inch back, etc. So for Oklahoma, the tight end position being the one that someone like Chris Lowe looking through the team and understanding how the rosters are set and says, you know what, kind of curious. I don't think that I know what's going on there. That means that the other positions, most likely for the Oklahoma Sooners, have established themselves as ones that they have an idea of who's going to be there.
So here's my thought on this. Really, if tight end is the biggest area of concern, that could be a good thing. I also don't think it's going to be the thing that trips them up, as ESPN wanted to phrase that. What was going to be the thing that was going to be the stumbling block or hold a team back from what it wants to accomplish? And I don't think tight end will be that. Not necessarily because I think it's going to be good, just because I don't think it holds as much of a position of influence as everything else on the offense. To me, still the biggest area of concern is the offensive line. I just need to see them go perform against Michigan in particular to show me that this is a team ready to go compete for an SEC title, for a playoff spot. I need to see consistency. I need to see health, a lot of things. We have some returning starters on the offensive line. We brought in some transfer portal guys. That stuff may matter, and it may have a big influence on this. But if you're not healthy, it could create issues like you had last year. If you're inconsistent, especially from a pass protection standpoint, it could create issues like you saw last year. So to me, offensive line is still the biggest area of concern because I need to see them go prove it. I like the depth better. I like what you've got in the starting lineup a little bit better. I like their health. They made it through spring ball, and sounds like, based on reports, that the offensive line is healthy going into fall camp. So all of those are positive signs. Just need to see that continue through fall camp, into the season, all the way through December and January. to where we get a healthy offensive line for the entire year. Fingers crossed. But tight end to me, Jay, yes, it is a valuable position because every position is valuable, but to me, it's not going to be the thing that keeps them from being a contender. Even if it's just average, or even if it's bad. We go back to 2023. Okay, it wasn't very good. They still won 10 games. And it wasn't with a defense, or it was a defense that wasn't as good as the one that Oklahoma's going to have this year. So, yes, tight end's important. Yes, they got to get some positive production out of it, but I don't think it's going to be the thing that holds them back.
To me, I agree with you there. I don't think that it holds them back, but I do think that it's more concerning than the offensive line, in my opinion. I'll keep saying it. Bill Bedenbow's the offensive line coach, and we saw what Oklahoma looked like when the line was healthy. You can't do anything about people getting hurt. That's football. Congratulations. You're playing a game where it's so dangerous you can't even practice it fully every week over week. That tells you everything you need to know about the game itself. And so, to me, health isn't something that I'm that concerned about, because you can't do anything about that. You're either going to have a good break or you're going to have a bad break. And I think we're leaning towards the good breaks this year, knock on wood, mainly because it's something that's ebbs and flow, right? You can't control it. So I try to take that component out of the analysis for myself, mainly because I know it's such a crapshoot that you just got to wait and see what happens out there. Tight end, though, we just don't know. It is the most unknown of any position on this team now. Right?
Also, where would you rank tight end in order of importance on the offense? 1 through 11.
1 through 11, I'm probably putting it number 10, because we don't really, like you said, in 2023, we did not really need a tight end, and it wasn't that good a play, unfortunately. You don't need it as much. But again, as I said earlier, I think the one thing about it, though, when you're in the SEC and it's all about being physical, that's kind of one position that helps a lot with that. Granted, the solution for Oklahoma on that is just going 4 wide and putting your big wide receivers out there and hoping one of them is really good at blocking, which Emmett Jones has shown us he's helped develop receivers into being better downfield blockers, which will help long term. So, yeah, it may not be as important, but to me, I agree with it being the biggest area of concern, because I am not as concerned with everything else as everybody else is. Again, the one thing that you can't control, the Oklahoma Sooners cannot control fully, is if people get hurt in a very dangerous sport. So, because of that, I'm not concerned if we're 100% healthy on any of the other positions, because it seems like we're going in the right direction.
I'll say this. I feel better about left tackle going into this year. If Jacob Sexton is your projected left tackle, he's battled a lot of injuries during his time at Oklahoma.
Yeah, yes.
Michael Fasusi is his projected backup. I feel better about the projected backup situation than I did last year. So, you've heard the phrase, hurt players stay hurt. Well, hopefully that bucks the trend for Jacob Sexton and he can have a healthy season. But if not, you've got a really, really talented player behind him, just kind of waiting to break out. So, yeah, but what would be number 11 on your list? I know this is just kind of an off the cuff discussion, and I did not preface Jay with this, but it would be 10. What would be number 11? I'm just curious.
Probably the kicking team, like kicking and punting. Like, you need it. You very much need it, and it can come down critical to game-winning spots. But
sorry, I was talking about on the offense. But
on the offensive side, each position on the offensive side. Yeah. Well, I mean, going down the line, I think that's a good question. Let's go right tackle.
Okay. Derek Simmons, he threw the shade.
Yeah, a little bit.
No. But the addition of Derek Simmons, though, does give me confidence a little bit more about the offensive line, because that's a guy that has played a lot. And he's been consistent. Yeah. He's been on the field. He's played against SEC competition, ACC competition, and he's shown positive things. So, listen, I get where you're coming from. Tight end is the biggest unknown, no doubt.
Yes.
Yeah, it just still doesn't hold the same level of concern for me that offensive line does. But let us know. Do you agree with Jay that tight end is still the biggest area of concern? Or do you agree with me that offensive line is the biggest area of concern? Let us know in the YouTube comments. Hit us up on social media at Locked On Sooners and let us know your thoughts on this. Coming up next, our guy Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On College Football dropped his SEC power rankings for 2025. What? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. And today's episode of Locked On Sooners is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Everything that you can do inside Monarch Money allows you to have better consistency and better communication with your spouse, with your partner. My wife and I, we use this, and it helps us to see what we're spending on all of our credit cards, in our different checking accounts, and we can be on the same page. It is so easy, and it helps to understand what kind of subscriptions you have or where you're spending the most money so that you can rebudget and reprioritize your spending. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners have been getting some love in the preseason power rankings, quarterback rankings, some All-American love, not enough, but it's fine. Well, our guy Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On College Football, came out with his SEC power rankings and had the Oklahoma Sooners at number 6. Jay, what do you think about what Spencer has to say here? And you're muted.
Of course I am. That's why you're supposed to be like that. It's supposed to always be me, especially when you start coughing. But no, I think that this is very fair. This is a very fair spot to start the Sooners off with. You're going with the conference champion who you're supposed to start with. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about the attrition of the roster and all that. No, give them their respect. They deserve to be at the top to start. Let them be at the top. So you start with the conference champions. I always have questions about Texas, but they were the runner-up, so go ahead and give them some love. I don't mind that. We know that everyone is very high on the talent that's on the rosters of Alabama and LSU, so it makes sense for them to be in those spots. It's a lot of players that are coming in from their recruiting classes. And then South Carolina, everybody's high on Lenore Silas as he is the quote-unquote media darling. So Oklahoma being at 6, I see, and I'm glad that there's respect there. Me and Spencer actually talked about it on Locked On College Football. You can check out that episode on your next listen. Because my questions have been the ones behind Oklahoma, the Ole Miss and the Floridas, right? Like he the Billy Napier and the Lane Kiffin love or hate that you have there. The Elko at 9, and so many people think that Texas A&M is going to be a sleeper this season. So it was kind of crazy to see them down there. Understood on Tennessee at number 10 because their quarterback situation is their top area of concern because we don't know what the heck's going to happen there.
Facts.
Missouri, that's an area of concern at quarterback as well. We don't know what Bo Prabula is going to look like. We're not sure yet. He hasn't played much. Auburn is interesting at 12, though. He is not very high on them. That to me was like, wow. And the disrespect to Diego Pavia, John, I almost blew my gasket when I saw that. But no, I think the Oklahoma Sooners are on a very fair spot. Brent Venables has to show us that his offense is up to snuff because he did do the thing that he said and we expected him to do when he got here. The defense is actually good.
Yeah, I think this is about right. I could see people putting Florida ahead of Oklahoma because they had a strong finish to last season. You got DJ Lagway in year 2. I could understand putting maybe even a Texas A&M ahead of Oklahoma. They're going to have a really, really strong defense. You get year 2 of Marcel Reed. He has to improve a lot as a passer, but dynamic. He's a dynamic quarterback, man. He can do a lot of things with his legs that really, really cause problems. But I don't have any problem with anybody being ranked ahead of Oklahoma here because, again, like you mentioned, conference champion, conference runner-up, and then 3 teams that were flirting with the playoff in, Bama, LSU, South Carolina. LSU ended up, 8-4 on the regular season. But South Carolina was right there, man. They were a play or 2 away from making the playoff last year.
There were.
If they don't get a blocking, or not a block in the back, but a blindside block against LSU on 2 different interceptions, then they might have beaten the Tigers and gone to the playoff, and that would have been crazy. But, and who knows, man, they were a team that was like trending, so they could have won the whole thing. And I know that might sound crazy for a 3-loss team last year, but South Carolina was absolutely playing their best ball at the right time and could have just gone on an absolute tear. But yeah, that's my only really question is maybe Florida, maybe Texas A&M. But yeah, the rest of it, why would you put anybody else in front of Oklahoma aside from those 5? Because everybody else has got big questions. I understand Oklahoma has to have a big bounce back, and they've got a lot to prove this year, but so does everybody else in the SEC. This is a big turnover year, and that's why I'm so optimistic about what Oklahoma can do, because while everybody talks about the schedule, Oklahoma's schedule is so tough. It's one of the toughest in the nation. It's going to be a grind. It's going to be so hard to manage. How are they going to win 10 games? Blah, 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 blah. But you look at everybody on this list, and aside from Georgia, who else? There's no questions. There's so many questions aside from everybody but Georgia. And the only reason I give Georgia any benefit of the doubt is because of Kirby. That dude's been the most consistent thing in college football since he's gotten to Georgia.
Yeah. Him and Nick Saban are probably the 2, and now that Saban's gone in the SEC, we have no sitting coach that has an SEC championship.
Right. And so I look at everybody else on that list, and I'm like, Oklahoma could beat them. Oklahoma could beat them. Oklahoma could beat them. They could beat them. They could beat now. If the offense isn't significantly better this year, Oklahoma could still lose a bunch of games. But I don't think anybody thinks that the offense won't be significantly better.
It would be extremely hard, and it will be Oklahoma purposely doing this. It's going to be a job of throwing the game for Oklahoma to have a offense worse than what they had last year. 100%. No matter how you slice this pie, the Oklahoma Sooners doesn't have a single thing on this roster that will tell you that offense is going to be worse than it was last year, unless they are purposely trying to get somebody fired, aka Brent Venables. So with that being said, everything else about this team is built to be a lot better in comparison. And you're right. When you look at this, like I said, there's only one sitting coach here that has an SEC championship. And so they're the only one to me that deserves any type of full-fledged respect or even hype, because Kirby's the longest tenured guy that's been there. That's also, like I said, he's got the SEC championship and he's got all that behind him. So heck, he's got 2 natties as well to go with it. Yeah. So until I see someone else take the reins from them, it's always got to be Georgia number 1. That's the team that needs to be number 1 at all times. Yeah, the king got to say the king. If you want to come for the king, come for the crown, you got to take him. Got to take him down. Mm-hmm. That's it. Point blank. Period. So, but no. Is
there anybody on that list that you think should be significantly higher?
To be honest, the only one I considered really is A&M a little bit, but I don't really have an argument fully I can hear an argument for A&M to be better, but I don't have an argument, honestly, for anyone on here outside of Vanderbilt probably getting a little bit more respect because they beat Auburn last year. Did they? Mm-hmm. No, they didn't beat Auburn last year. They lost that game, didn't they? Can't remember.
Oh, Vandy beat both Alabama and Auburn too.
Perfect. Then Vanderbilt should be above them. There you go. I was trying to remember. It was another game that they didn't win that I thought they won. But anyway, Vanderbilt should be ahead of them. That's really it. There's nothing significant because there's a lot of change in the SEC this year. Yeah. A lot of replacements at positions that I'm just like, I got to wait and see.
Of those top 4, does that look about right to you?
I think LSU should probably be above Alabama, but
that's what I think too.
That's probably it, just because they come in with the incumbent quarterback. Now, granted, LSU's offensive line is not going to be like it was last season, so you've got questions there that you want to make sure actually goes down. But a slightly worse offensive line at LSU should not affect Garrett Nussmeier much because he does a really good job of getting rid of the ball. And that, to me, is probably where the focus is going to be for them. And their wide receiver room is always ridiculous. I don't care who lines up. They find a way to get dudes out of the state that just are absurd athletes and talented. So that's not something I'm worried. Running back room is fine. They'll be fine there. They're always fine there. They're always fine at wide receiver. They're always fine at DB. They're always fine in the secondary. For them, their defensive line is very young, and so we got to see if it's developed, if it's ready to really shine. This may be the year you see breakouts from some of those young players, but LSU to me is still the team to beat outside of Georgia, mainly because of that incumbent quarterback.
Yeah, the only thing you can bank on are death and taxes and LSU wide receivers.
Yeah,
they're always really good.
And DBs, because
And
they are
DBs.
really DBU.
They're always really good. So, hey, go check out Spencer McLaughlin on Locked On College Football. Does a great job breaking down the entire sport, not just the big, conferences, not just the big teams. He's doing Mountain West. He'll do Pac-12 realignment, all of it. So make sure you go check it out. Locked On College Football, wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up next, Congress is, they're trying to get involved in college football once again. Some of it might be some good ideas, some not so good. We'll discuss all that coming up next year on Locked On Sooners. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, I generally don't like when the government wants to step in and tell college football how it needs to run itself, or collegiate athletics how it needs to run itself. One, those guys don't have any clue as to the issues that administrators in the respective sports are facing. They just see it from a big picture view. And a lot of it has to do with they don't like the transfer portal. They don't like name, image, and likeness. And so they want to make a lot of changes. And the Senate came out with is introducing
the House. It was the House. It was the House.
The House introduced a bill called the SCORE Act that really is trying to put a limit on name, image, and likeness.
Yeah, the funny thing is so there's three elements that really is being lobbied by the NCAA that they've been asking for, and the bill has these elements for them, antitrust protections for them, meaning that, they can do things a lot different than we allow other businesses in this country to run. You're going to get preemptive of state laws that regulate name, image, and likeness, which means that they'll override anything that the state of Tennessee is trying to put out there, to where they can just we're going to ignore the Fed. We're going to ignore, NCAA. The state should be able to override anything they say. That's going to eliminate that. And a section that prevents athletes from becoming employees of their schools. Now, this is where things get a little tricky. If you watched Big 12 Media Days, I did, because I'm a degenerate and I probably need to go see help. And Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, made a statement there stating that the college football needs a salary cap, which is a very fascinating proclamation that, I'm going to be quite honest, I agree with. You can't have that without collective bargaining. So in some capacity, you got to figure out how to do collective bargaining, which could lead to, in a way, that these students have to become some sort of an employee of some sort of organization that allows them to be able to collectively bargain the cap, their pay, etc. We're probably not going to get to that point, because that is the one thing the NCAA wants to fully avoid, because it adds more responsibility on their back, and it also cuts away from their pie. So, John, when I saw this act, I read through the SCORE Act. I read through it a couple of times. I'm trying to just wrap my head around it. I get some of the components of it. It's kind of the feeling of a broke clock is right twice a day to me. There's some things in there that make sense. Probably two things. The rest of you like, so you want to stop people from being able to make money. We want to take away the free market capitalism that has always run this company, because free market capitalism is, the foundation of America. Why are we trying to stop people from making money? I get that people don't like the way that they're doing it. They don't like the way that collectives and boosters are circumventing as many rules as possible to do what they like to do, give money to players and get zero benefits back besides bragging rights at the end of the season. I don't really care. I think that it's a good thing that kids are going to get paid from this. I just think that boosters are dumb, and they have a tendency of being that way. Let them be dumb. Let the kids benefit from it.
I like that at least they're looking for a little bit of uniformity. The whole, each state can have its own name, image, and likeness rules. I don't care for that, because it does put it puts a bit of a damper on the whole thing. Like, if Tennessee can go out and just kind of do whatever it wants. It's the Wild West out there, but
Yeah.
Kentucky, that's right next door, has to abide by certain legislation that's going to limit what the Wildcats can do. That, to me, that's kind of ridiculous. Everybody's got to be under the same kind of guidance, the same kind of interpretation of the rules, so that it creates at least the semblance of a level playing field. There's never going to be a level playing field in FBS football because you've got the Power Four, and then you've got the Group of Six, and you got independents and things like that. The other thing that I can, I guess, appreciate a little bit about this is the antitrust part of it from the NCAA's perspective. They can't do anything without being sued. They can't attempt to levy discipline against an academic institution or against a program without being sued. They have no disciplinary power. And everybody's like, why doesn't the NCAA do something? Why doesn't the NCAA do something? Because they're going to get sued. And eventually you run out of money. You get tired of having to spend millions upon millions upon millions on these lawsuits before, having to go then to the Supreme Court and argue your case. All that stuff costs money. And that's money that your program, I'm sure, would rather have available to spend on your athletes. So quit suing the NCAA, everybody. Just chill.
It's kind of hard to stop, though.
It is hard to stop.
They keep putting themselves in situations where it's really easy to sue them. Here's the problem I've had.
But I think the thing, listen, we got the House settlement. We got the O'Bannon thing that introduced name, image, and likeness. We got down that road. Now just everybody just back off the NCAA. Like, it's okay. Just let them be a little bit. Let them do their thing a little bit. Because everybody's asking the NCAA to do something, right? But then when they do something, everybody's mad about what they do.
I mean, they've created this monster, though, John. This is the problem I have with that is they could have avoided this by doing things the right way from the beginning.
Of course. Yeah.
As you start to hit these massive contracts, the first thing someone looking around should have been like, hey, y'all know that they got grounds to sue us, right? Somebody in the room should have been able to like, hey, we're making a lot of money. I love when Joe Clapp pointed this out right around the time the Austin lawsuit started to go down. This was, the addition to the Ed O'Bannon situation. And Joe Clapp over at Fox Sports pointed out that like $90-something million was being paid to 5 coaches to not do their job. And it's like you could take that and give just about every player X amount of thousands of dollars.
Yep.
You can do that. That could have been done. If you had provided that before, if you had taken it, let's put it this way. NCAA goes in, they bring up these massive contracts, which are usually double each time that these TV deals go down. And they said, you know what, we're going to allocate 50% of this towards all the athletics. And we're going to split that up among the revenue making schools. I bet you a lot of this stuff, a lot of this that we're dealing with now would have been mitigated. The NCAA would have looked like they had more power because they would have been talking to the conferences and let them know, hey, forward thinking. Yeah. We need to find a way to compensate these dudes and these gals because why? They're bringing in billions. We probably should start because somebody's going to look at this money and ask questions. And that's when the question started being asked because you have college football coaches making more than NFL coaches by wide margins. Mm-hmm. That is when you started to really open up Pandora's box. The NCAA's problem isn't that their problem isn't that they're being attacked by everybody. Their problem is they open the door for people to attack them. If they would have had that bad boy sealed in some capacity of, hey, we're doing this to make sure people are taken care of, wouldn't be here. The booster involvement, though, is where your problem lies. The way boosters are doing is where the issues lie. And that commission, John, have already started rejecting the smallest deals in the world. And I think they've just opened it up to where things are about to get worse.
Speaking of boosters, I find it really, really interesting that the Texas Tech guy, the billionaire guy, Cody, that he was at Big 12 Media Days talking about how he wants to save college athletics, all while just pouring money into Texas Tech and NIL and all that. Anyway, I found that was interesting. So lack of leadership, man. And I think that is something that we've seen in college football over the last 10, 15 years, whether it's at the NCAA level or the Pac-12 level. Like, the reason the Pac-12 fell apart was a lack of leadership. The reason that the NCAA is in the state it's in right now is because of lack of leadership. Absolutely. It set the stage for where we're at. And them as a governing body has been asking Congress to help them with something, to give them their teeth back. But Congress has been really slow to act, slow to get involved. They had no interest in figuring out a way to make this happen. Some of it, I'm sure, is because of the pressure of their constituents. These big athletic programs may not want the NCAA to have a whole lot of teeth, but it is an issue created by their own lack of leadership. I totally agree with you on that, Jay, that the NCAA, they could have acted earlier to make this less of an issue, but their lack of action, a lot of times that's what sets you up for failure. So we'll see what happens. The other thing that we didn't really touch on is they want to enact a one-time transfer rule and a one-time transfer portal period. I think this both has positive and negative benefits. One, here's the positive, and real briefly, and you can respond real briefly too. The positive is it forces players to be patient. Too many times, guys aren't happy with their situation just after 1 year, and they want to bounce. When maybe if they would stick it out 2 to 3 years, they might find their situation to actually be more beneficial to them and actually allow them to develop a little bit. Look at the 2022 class and how important they're going to be for Oklahoma this year. A lot of that core, R. Mason Thomas, Grayson Halton, Gentry Williams, Robert Spears Jennings, Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, they didn't play much their true freshman season. Well, look at them now. They're about to be stars for this team.
I like the one-time transfer portal window because it makes it easy for roster management, especially with revenue sharing. Yeah. I actually love the idea of having the national signing day be July 1st, right when you hit your first big dead period, mainly because I've seen some coaches and I think some GMs had anonymously talked about this as well, that it makes sense to do it then because that's when you can start preparing for next year and you can focus on football throughout the entire year. And then, if anything, scout for the transfer portal to see who ends up getting in there, or, tamper whoever you want to get out of the transfer portal during the regular season. But you can focus on just ball from there. And I like that idea because it totally makes sense. And then having a one-time portal window right there at the end of the season is probably the smartest way to handle things. Having two windows hurt. The first window, especially after the season ends, coaches like the idea of that because then they can get players in that could go through spring practice and then kind of go from there. Now it makes people have to make that decision of, all right, do I really want to leave or do I want to stick it out or whatnot? Totally agree with you on that capacity, but this is the thing, though. I do think it outweighs more that kids are pushed out than kids actually leaving for because they don't want to be developed. I think in most of those situations, most of these kids don't want to go anywhere. The ones that want to be developed, a lot of them kind of have to get kicked out sometimes because they're not developing at the rate that's needed in order for them to participate on that particular team. Right. I could totally see it, though, that, some kids do bail. I mean, I know that happens. The other thing, though, is a lot of the kids that are bailing usually are bailing up. Like if the guy's bailing down, most of these fans want that. If you're someone that should only be playing in a G6, we don't want you on our team. I mean, just ask a fan. They'll tell you they're not very empathetic to players that they don't feel like is cutting the mustard the way they want. So I agree with you in that capacity. I like the idea of one, but man, yeah, I don't know. I don't think if it's really a development piece because you're right. A lot of players need to stick around and get to that last year, have that one really good year because most of the time that's all you need to go to the NFL. If you have one really good year, you probably can go pro.
Drafted.
You're going to get drafted. That's all that matters. The question is where. Now, if you want to try to up your stock by having an even better year, be careful. It's very hard to do that. If it's already saying you got a chance to go to the draft, do it. Yeah. Now, things around you is going to be improved, and it's going to help you to show out, hey, go ahead and stick around one more year and make it happen. R. Mason Thomas, I think he's going to be a great example of that this year.
Yeah, and also if a coach leaves, transfer portal is open. Like that needs to
Gotta
stay.
be. Yeah, you can't
Has
not do
to
that.
stay. If a coach can up and leave in the middle of a contract, players should be able to have that same freedom. Anyway.
Yep.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on every podcast platform and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check him out at Unfair Sports on his YouTube channel. You can follow me at John9Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners. And hey, guess what? Locked On Sooners is going to be at SEC Media Days next week, Monday through Thursday. Cannot wait to get down there to Atlanta, share with you all kinds of great content. So make sure you're tuned in and subscribe to the YouTube channel, in particular the YouTube channel, because we will be dropping shorts left and right from interviews with media members, with players, coaches, all that stuff. So go check it out over there at YouTube as well. Until next time, he's Jay. I'm John. Talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner.